In the vast halls of the Galactic Council, illuminated by the glow of stars visible through the crystalline walls, a heated debate was underway. The council chamber, a circular expanse filled with representatives from 100 species, hummed with low murmurs as one figure addressed the assembly. The speaker, a lean, reptilian alien with scarred scales and weary eyes, stood at the center. He had come to deliver a warning, a dire plea that echoed with the weight of personal experience. "You must listen to me," he began, his voice trembling with urgency. "I have faced them. I have seen what they can do. The humans are not like us. They are relentless, adaptable, and—" he hesitated, searching for the right word. "Hunters. If you provoke them, they will not stop until they have destroyed you. They will hunt you forever." His words lingered in the air, but they were met with silence. Then, a ripple of laughter broke the tension. A rotund representative from the Geldaran species, known for their blustering arrogance, leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Humans? Those primitives from the Sol system? You expect us to fear a species that barely left their homeworld a century ago? Preposterous." Another voice chimed in, a high-pitched trill from the insectoid Vorsith delegate. "They lack the technology, the coordination. They are impulsive, chaotic, hardly a threat to a unified force such as ours." The emissary's scales flushed a darker hue, a sign of his growing frustration. "You underestimate them at your peril," he snapped. "They learn. They adapt. When they lost their outer colony on Tarsus IV, they did not retreat, they retaliated. A single human vessel obliterated an entire raiding fleet using tactics we could not predict. And that was before they had time to study us." The council chamber erupted in scoffs and dismissive murmurs. A tall, avian-like alien from the council's core leadership rose to his feet, spreading his shimmering wings for emphasis. "Enough of this fear-mongering," he declared. "Humanity is a minor annoyance, nothing more. If they step out of line, we shall remind them of their place. A surgical strike on their colonies will suffice." The emissary's eyes narrowed. "You think a strike will cow them? No, it will unify them. Humans are dangerous because they thrive under pressure. They are not bound by tradition or hierarchy as we are. Their unpredictability is their greatest weapon." But the council had already made up its mind. The vote was cast, the decision unanimous. A fleet would be dispatched to neutralize the human threat before it could grow any further. The emissary shook his head in despair. "You think this is the end of them? It is only the beginning. Mark my words, they will come for you. And when they do, you will remember this warning too late." As the emissary exited the chamber, the laughter of the council members echoed behind him, their confidence unshaken. They could not see the storm they had just unleashed. The decision had been made. The Galactic Council, in all its arrogance, sent a fleet of sleek warships to humanity's outer colonies. It was meant to be a demonstration of power, a message to remind the upstart species of its place in the galactic hierarchy. As the Council saw it, humans were a minor species, technologically inferior and too fragmented to pose a real threat. A swift, decisive strike would ensure they never rose to challenge the established order. Reports from the fleet began pouring in after the initial assault. The humans had mounted some resistance, but it was laughable, a patchwork fleet of retrofitted civilian ships and a few outdated orbital defenses. Within hours, the colonies had fallen. The counselors congratulated themselves on their foresight, their laughter echoing through the grand chamber once again. "They crumble as expected," a representative boasted, his gelatinous form quivering with satisfaction. Their so-called unity was a myth. They were no match for even a fraction of our forces. The avian leader, who had spearheaded the decision, addressed the assembly with smug confidence. "Let this serve as a lesson to all. The Galactic Council does not tolerate defiance. We have clipped the wings of these humans before they could ever hope to fly, but not all were convinced." A few counselors, wary of the warnings they had dismissed earlier, questioned the fleet's commander about the operation. "Were there any significant losses on our side?" one asked cautiously. "None of consequence," came the response, though there was a note of unease in the commander's tone. However, the humans showed unusual resilience. They refused to surrender, even when it was clear they were outmatched. Their tactics were chaotic, unpredictable. One of their ships rammed into our flagship, detonating its core. It was an act of desperation, but he paused, as if reluctant to voice his concern. But what? The counselor pressed. The commander hesitated before replying. It wasn't entirely without effect. They managed to destroy several of our vessels before we subdued the colony. The council dismissed these concerns as inconsequential. What could a species so primitive hope to achieve against the full might of the Galactic Council? They continued their deliberations as if the matter had already been resolved. Weeks passed, and the council's complacency deepened. When scattered reports of human counterattacks began to surface, they were brushed aside as mere rumors. A supply convoy had been ambushed. An outpost had gone silent. Small, isolated incidents, nothing more. They're lashing out in futility, a counselor sneered during one of the sessions. Typical of a cornered beast. Let them struggle. It will only hasten their collapse. Yet beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. The fleet commanders, stationed on the front lines, started sending increasingly urgent messages. They spoke of human ingenuity, of guerrilla tactics that exploited weaknesses no one had considered. They described a relentless pursuit, where even retreat offered no safety. The council ignored these warnings, convinced of their superiority. Their laughter echoed once more, masking the faint tremors of a storm gathering beyond their comprehension. They believed they had already won. They couldn't fathom that the true fight was only beginning. The retaliation began quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. Humanity, battered but unbroken, gathered its strength in the shadows. Earth's leaders, who had long been mired in division and bureaucracy, united with a single purpose: survival. This was no longer about defending their colonies. It was about ensuring that humanity itself would endure, and sending a message that no one would ever forget. The first counterstrike was surgical, striking where the council least expected. A small human task force, armed with reverse-engineered alien technology, ambushed a supply convoy deep in council-controlled space. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving no survivors. The message was clear. Humanity was not retreating. It was advancing. The council dismissed the incident as an anomaly, but the ambush was only the beginning. Human forces began striking at weak points in the council's vast empire: isolated outposts, undefended supply lines, vulnerable communication hubs. The attacks were precise and devastating, leaving the council scrambling to respond. What baffled the council most was humanity's unpredictability. They used strategies no one had ever seen before, tactics that defied all conventional logic. Human fleets would feint an attack on one front, only to vanish and reappear light years away, striking a completely different target. They turned their limited resources into an advantage, leveraging creativity and ingenuity to compensate for their technological inferiority. On the ground, human soldiers became legends. Stories spread among the alien ranks of soldiers who never stopped fighting, who used every available tool, alien or otherwise, to turn the tide of battles. They were relentless, adapting to every challenge with an almost terrifying efficiency. But humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't its soldiers or ships. It was its mind. Earth's brightest scientists worked tirelessly to decipher captured alien technology, turning it into tools of war faster than anyone thought possible. Within months, humans had developed weapons and defenses that rivaled those of the Council's finest. They built ships that could outmaneuver the Council's cruisers and devised countermeasures that rendered the Council's most advanced systems useless. Then came the psychological warfare. Humans intercepted and decoded Council communications, using the information to spread fear and disarray among their enemies. Mysterious messages began appearing on Council ships and stations, warnings scrawled in the human alphabet. "We will find you. We will hunt you." The Council's forces, once proud and confident, grew paranoid. Alien commanders began reporting sightings of human ships where none should have been. Entire fleets retreated from phantom threats, wasting precious resources in the process. Every shadow became a potential ambush, every quiet sector a trap waiting to be sprung. What terrified the Council most, however, was humanity's refusal to give up. Even when outnumbered, even when faced with impossible odds, humans fought on. They fought not just for survival but for revenge. The Council's arrogance had awakened a force they could no longer contain, and humanity would stop at nothing to ensure the galaxy remembered its name. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And the Council, despite all its power and resources, was beginning to understand that they had underestimated their enemy in the worst possible way. The Galactic Council's forces were in shambles. What had started as a calculated campaign to suppress a minor species had spiraled into an all-out war for survival. Humanity, once dismissed as a primitive annoyance, was now the predator, and the Council's vast empire was its prey. The turning point came when a human fleet, constructed in secret and armed with technology reverse-engineered from the Council's own designs, launched a coordinated strike on a major Council stronghold. It wasn't just an attack, it was a statement. Humanity had mastered what the Council had thought impossible, and they wielded it with terrifying precision. The stronghold, thought to be impenetrable, fell within days. Its defenders, once so confident in their superiority, surrendered or fled. The Council convened in desperation. For the first time in centuries, fear filled the Grand Chamber. Reports of human incursions were no longer isolated, they were everywhere. Entire sectors had gone dark, their fleets destroyed or scattered. Trade routes had become death traps, and colonies once considered untouchable now stood vulnerable. "What do they want?" demanded one of the counselors, his voice trembling. "We've offered reparations, ceasefires, even alliances. Why do they continue to attack?" The answer was grim. Humanity didn't want reparations or alliances. They wanted vengeance. The emissary's warning echoed in the minds of those who had mocked it. "They will hunt you forever." The Council's remaining fleets were gathered for a final stand. They positioned themselves near the core worlds, the heart of their empire, determined to protect what little they had left. But humanity was relentless. They didn't just attack, they dismantled. Every engagement was a lesson, every loss a stepping stone to a more devastating counterattack. When the human fleet finally reached the Council's core systems, it was no longer the ragtag force of improvised ships the Council had once dismissed. It was an armada sleek, deadly, and unstoppable. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council threw everything they had at the humans, deploying their most advanced weapons and strategies. But it wasn't enough. Humanity had already studied and adapted to every tactic, every system, every weakness. As the Council's flagship fell, the surviving leaders watched in despair. The humans didn't stop with victory, they dismantled the Council piece by piece. Core worlds were occupied, key infrastructure was seized, and the once mighty coalition of species was left fractured and powerless. In the aftermath, the emissary's words were remembered with bitter regret. The laughter that had once filled the Council chambers was gone, replaced by silence and ruin. Humanity stood victorious, not just as a survivor but as a force that had reshaped the galaxy forever. And as the remnants of the Council fled into the shadows, one truth became undeniable. The humans had hunted them, and they would never stop. Wherever they ran, whatever refuge they sought, humanity would find them. The warning had been clear all along. They just hadn't listened.